Hello and welcome to Midday Report here on TVP World. I'm Marie Casey. Delcy Rodríguez may have taken on the responsibilities of Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro, but Venezuelans are ill at ease. President Donald Trump is clear that the U.S. is in charge, but there is no clear plan for what comes next. Global forces may be at play, but how do regular Venezuelans perceive the situation?
The dust has settled on America's raid of Venezuela, which successfully extracted President Nicolás Maduro from his place of power. For Venezuelans, the future feels uncertain.
There's anxiety and desperation, and we don't know what will happen.
We are all living with this uncertainty to see what will happen, what the directives will be, so we can continue our lives.
Maduro's VP Delcy Rodríguez has taken over as president. Before her inauguration, the US president said she may pay an even higher price than her predecessor if she refuses to cooperate with America. After previous defiant comments, she now says she's ready to work with the United States.
Don't ask me who's in charge, because I'll give you an answer and it'll be very controversial.
What does that mean?
Yes, we're in charge.
Have you spoken with her?
We're in charge.
Have you spoken with her?
Yet, armed militants loyal to the deposed president are frequently sighted on the streets of Caracas. Chaos persists as questions arise as to how America aims to stabilize the country.
This is a strategic political goal to try to change the situation in a country which is very important in South America for the security of the United States.
The region has been shaken by US actions, causing Colombia to deploy troops to their shared border with Venezuela.
The U.S. naval forces are still right in the Caribbean, right in the same place they were 3 days ago. So the U.S. has a massive naval and military capability, and they could use that in a number of ways.
President Donald Trump said the U.S. is ready for another attack on Venezuela, but also directly threatened Mexico, Cuba, and Colombia.
You have to do something with Mexico. Mexico has to get their act together. Colombia is very sick, too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you. Cuba is ready to fall, you know. Yes. Cuba looks like it's ready to fall.
Over in New York, Nicolás Maduro and his wife are due to appear in court facing charges of running a corrupt, illegitimate government and flooding the U.S. with illegal drugs. The United Nations Security Council is also due to hold an emergency meeting later today to discuss the latest developments in Venezuela.
And indeed, all eyes have been on Venezuela and on the U.S. and bracing for the domino effect of this weekend's events. Venezuela is one of the most oil-rich countries on the earth, and yet the market reactions so far have been subdued. But as events unfold, much is yet to come. Maciej Wilowski reports.
For an event as significant as Saturday's ouster of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, leader of one of the most oil-rich countries on earth, the reaction from oil markets has been surprisingly muted. The price of West Texas Intermediate crude, the benchmark of oil prices used in the Western Hemisphere, was down less than 1% early on Monday. By midday, prices had rebounded and were even up for the day. Despite having the world's biggest reserves of oil, an estimated 300 billion barrels, or roughly 17% of the world's total, decades of falling production have reduced Venezuela's influence on the global market.
Venezuela is producing far less, about a third, basically, about 1 million barrels per day, compared to their capacity, which was observable about 15 years ago or so, of about 3 million barrels per day.
From a peak of 3.5 million barrels per day in 1997, production bottomed out at less than 400,000 barrels per day in 2020 during the pandemic. It recovered back above 1 million barrels a day last year, but still accounts for less than 1% of the global total. When it comes to geopolitics, Maduro's ouster is a win for the United States and a loss for Russia and China, the last of which has become one of Venezuela's biggest oil customers in recent years.
Historically, most of Venezuela's exports have gone to China and other countries willing to work around sanctions, mainly Russia as well, so great U.S. involvement could redirect some flows towards the U.S.
Hours after Maduro's capture on Saturday, U.S. President Donald Trump pledged new American investments into Venezuela's oil sector.
We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure and start making money for the country.
While U.S. investment could help revitalize Venezuela's oil industry, the payoff could take years.
The U.S. investment, technology, and management could have restarted fields and modernized refineries, but recovery, as I mentioned previously, would take at least probably 3 to 5 years.
While recovery would be slow, it would reverse decades of decline for the country's struggling oil sector. Maciej Wilowski for TVP World.
And we now move to high diplomatic tensions in the wake of the U.S. military intervention of Venezuela and renewed threats by President Trump to annex Greenland. European leaders have come together to rally behind Denmark, expressing their full solidarity. Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk has called for unity, reminding European allies that it's all for one and one for all.
The implications of the successful U.S. operation in Venezuela reach far beyond South America, with Donald Trump renewing his annexation threats towards Greenland.
We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security, and the European Union needs us to have it, and they know that.
Greenland's Prime Minister responded strongly.
That is not how you speak to people who have repeatedly demonstrated accountability, stability, and loyalty. Enough is enough. No more pressure, no more insinuations, no more fantasies about annexation.
Leaders of Sweden, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and others rallied in support of Denmark. Polish Prime Minister called for European unity.
No one will take seriously a weak and divided Europe, neither enemy nor ally. It is already clear now. We must finally believe in our own strength, and we must continue to arm ourselves. We must stay united like never before. One for all and all for one. Otherwise, we're finished.
Trump's calls came despite a statement from the Danish Prime Minister.
It makes absolutely no sense to talk about the need for the United States to take over Greenland. The United States has no right to annex any of the 3 countries in the Commonwealth. We already have a defense agreement between the Kingdom and the United States today, which gives the United States wide access to Greenland.
Experts fear the existing alliances will not be enough for Washington.
The problem with Donald Trump in this regard is he doesn't believe in alliances, even though these defense assets are already there for the United States through the NATO alliance with Denmark and indeed, following on from that, with Greenland.
While Europe awaits further developments, experts offer best-case scenarios.
The next best option, and it's a very reliable option to the United States, is to work through the NATO alliance to resolve many of these risks, because they can have both. They can secure Greenland, which can secure transatlantic security, not just US security, and we can keep the NATO alliance durable.
Donald Trump wants to circle back to the topic of Greenland in 20 days.
At least 2 people have been killed in a Russian air attack on Kyiv and its surrounding region. Meanwhile, diplomatic activity is set to intensify this week. On Monday, the chiefs of the general staffs of Ukraine's allies are expected to meet in Kyiv. This will be followed by a meeting of the so-called Coalition of the Willing in Paris on Tuesday. Our Ukraine correspondent, Oz Katerji, is in Kyiv with the latest.
2 people have been killed as Russia launched a series of drone strikes in the early hours of Monday morning. One person, a 75-year-old man, was killed in the Kyiv region, and one person was killed in the city of Kyiv, and 4 others wounded as Russia struck a 4-story hospital in the city of Kyiv with a drone on Monday morning. Now, the Ukrainian authorities say Russia launched 165 drones into Ukrainian territory, striking 10 different locations across the country. President Zelensky himself condemned the attack in the morning, saying it's important to remind our partners that AD systems are needed every day, funds for the production of interceptor drones every day, and equipment for the energy sector every day. Once again, Russia targeting Ukraine's civilian energy infrastructure, leaving parts of the Kyiv region without power. This has been an ongoing thing throughout the winter as Russia continues to try to target Ukraine's energy sector to make life difficult for Ukrainian civilians. President Zelensky says he will have more discussions with his partners in Europe and America regarding supplies for air defenses in the coming week. It's Oz Katerji reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
2026 is already challenging Hungary's foreign policy under Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Budapest was the only EU capital to recognize Nicolás Maduro's election as Venezuela's president in 2013 and has maintained close ties ever since. Regionally, alleged mistreatment of the Hungarian minority in Slovakia by Prime Minister Robert Fico's government has reignited parliamentary elections, with opposition leader Peter Magyar saying his government would take action against Bratislava. Our Hungary correspondent Andrew Sweeney has more.
They now call it the Monroe document, I don't know.
US President Donald Trump's twist on the Monroe Doctrine has caused a foreign policy headache for Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Orban has prided himself on his close ties with President Trump, but Hungary has also maintained ties with Venezuela's Nicolás Maduro. In 2024, Budapest blocked an EU statement condemning election rigging in Venezuela. The year before, Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó visited Caracas to meet with Maduro. He also visited Belarus the same year and Moscow last November. Orban is now blocking another EU statement, this time voicing caution over the arrest of Maduro.
I think what he's going to talk about is he's probably going to try to frame this as a collapse of the liberal world order. And I think rather than attacking President Trump or Washington on this issue, I think he will try to attack Brussels. If he does so, this would mirror what the Slovak Prime Minister did. He did actually condemn the US attack more abstractly, avoiding mentioning Donald Trump specifically.
During a press conference today, Orban rejected any comparison between Trump's intervention in Venezuela and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, saying that the move was good for energy markets.
What I consider important for Hungary is that together with Venezuela, the United States, by my estimation, will be able to control 40 to 50% of the world's oil reserves. This is a power already capable of significantly influencing the world market price of energy.
Foreign policy problems for Orban have emerged closer to home too, in Slovakia, led by his geopolitical ally Robert Fico. On December 27th, Bratislava brought in new legislation that criminalises criticism of the Beneš decrees. These provided the legal basis for the expulsion of Hungarians after World War II. Opposition leader Peter Magyar, whose TISA party leads the polls for Hungary's parliamentary elections, has said that his government would expel Slovakia's ambassador over the issue.
The future foreign minister of the TISA government will immediately contact their Slovakian counterpart and, as a sovereign and free country, give them the respect they deserve. We will consider and use all possible means of political and diplomatic instruments. If we cannot diplomatically get this disgraceful legislation repealed, we will ask the Slovakian ambassador Pavlo Pavlis to leave Hungary.
With the parliamentary elections less than 100 days away, a challenge to Orban's credentials as a defender of Hungarian minorities abroad could be hard to face off. For TVP World, Andrew Sweeney.
Tensions are on the rise in Iran, with protests taking place now 8 days straight. 3 children are reported to have been killed and more than 40 minors arrested. The failing economy has allegedly sparked protests, and US President Donald Trump has threatened to respond if Iran kills protesters, prompting Tehran to warn that intervention would destabilize the region.
There's growing anger in Iran, with spreading protests sparked by the country's failing economy. Iran's hardline theocracy is under pressure. If security forces fail to suppress these latest protests, The Times reports that Iran's Ayatollah Ali Khamenei plans to flee the country.
There is this morning information that Ayatollah Khomeini, the spiritual and political leader of Iran, is considering to take refuge in Moscow in case of necessity.
There's precedent for the move. The Syrian dictator and fellow Kremlin ally Bashar al-Assad escaped to Russia in December 2024 after his rule was overthrown. Rights groups said on Sunday at least 16 people have been killed during a week of unrest. Khamenei may now be considering his options in the wake of the US strikes in Venezuela this past weekend.
There's been protesters killed in Iran. You said we were locked and loaded, ready to go. What is the line there for when the US is going to get involved in those protests?
We'll take a look. We're watching it very closely. If they start killing people like they have in the past, I think they're going to get hit very hard by the United States.
The Western intelligence report seen by the Times said Khamenei was weaker, both mentally and physically, following last year's 12-day war with Israel. Whether he has the strength and the support of his security services to ward off this latest challenge remains to be seen.
And that's a wrap for Midday Report. Thanks for watching, and make sure you stay tuned for more news and analysis on TVP World. Goodbye.